Hello, I'm Sayojita. With Holi and Gudi Padwa or Ugadi right round the corner, I thought I would make Puran Poli today. Usually we make Puran Poli for these festivals. This video is for those of you who have never made Puran Poli before and would like to learn, and for those who are quite familiar with the process. Puran Poli is a sweet stuffed roti, also known as holige or obattu. The challenge in making Puran Poli is that unlike other stuffed rotis like aloo or paneer paratha, Puran Polis are quite light and have a very thin outer covering. Admittedly, this is a complicated and labor intensive process, probably why it's rarely made at home nowadays. I've been making Puran Polis for over 30 years. I've adapted the traditional recipe using some shortcuts and modern household equipment. The look, taste, and texture are still authentic.
The next section is primarily for those who are unfamiliar in the Puran Poli making process. If you know this already, skip to the next chapter, which is the making.
So, for making Puran Poli, there are 4 parts to the process that are key. First is to make the stuffing. In my opinion, that's the hardest in the traditional method. We have to cook the dal. If it's not cooked well, nothing will go right. Then we have to mix in the jaggery. That's easy. But then we have to make it smooth. And in the traditional method, this is fairly labor intensive. Once we add jaggery, it's going to get all loose, and we have to reduce it so we can actually make a ball that we can stuff into the dough. So this is the most labor intensive part. So after the stuffing comes the dough. Now the main thing with the dough is the consistency. It has to be nice and loose, and we have to be able to stuff it and then roll it easily. The third is to roll the roti, and for that the complexity is in actually making the stuffed ball. There's a little technique that you have to learn, that's all. And then last of all is roasting the roti is the easiest, and it's just like roasting any other roti. So with that, let's get started.
The first task is to cook the dal. If that's cooked well, then the rest of the Puran making process will go smoothly. I've washed it thoroughly. If you have time, soak it for about 1 to 2 hours. This is the best time to add the salt if you do want to add it. If you have soaked the dal, 3 cups of water or 2 times the quantity of dal is plenty. I have added a quarter cup more since I have not soaked the dal. For this method, a little more water is better than less. Set it to pressure cook in a pressure cooker or an instant pot. Cook for about 20 minutes after the pressure has built up, or on the longer side rather than the short. Well-cooked dal is key in making good puran. I'm going to make the dough while the dal is cooking. I have used whole wheat flour or atta and all-purpose flour or maida in the ratio 2:1. Traditionally, we make it with all atta at home. We need to make a loose, malleable dough. That's the cooker whistling in the background. The pressure has just built up on the dal. I use hot water and oil to make the dough. The dough should be quite sticky. You may need more water than I have used, especially if you're using all whole wheat flour. I'm starting with a little less than 1/4 cup of oil. I don't expect to need all of it. Knead the dough with pressure like this to release the gluten. Traditionally, when wheat was stone ground, the dough was pounded with a pestle to break down the flour. You can use a food processor for this. It will save you some kneading effort. Nowadays, I'm enjoying kneading dough by hand, so hand it is for me. The hot water, oil, and the heavy kneading help to make a pliable dough. I have about 2 tablespoons of oil left. I started with 4. And there's one more cooker whistle. Although I do recommend making some of the Puran Poli steps a day in advance, I do not think this one is worth that. It does not save much time, and you can easily make the dough a few hours before making the poli. Keep the dough covered until you need it. The dal should be ready by now. The pressure is released naturally. It took about 45 minutes in total, 30 of them in the cooker. It has cooked well. The dal should be soft like this. If you feel any hardness in the dal at all, you must put it back in the pressure cooker right now. It will cause a lot of problems later. There is some water at the bottom here. If I was making puran the traditional way on the stove, I would want to remove all of it. But I'm going to use this to my advantage. You will see how shortly. We don't want too much water in there, but a little bit like this is welcome for my method. Well-cooked dal will make the puran making process smooth. I seem to be repeating this like a broken record, but it is important. Now we can add the jaggery. It should be a little bit more than the volume of the dal. This is 1.5 cups and I'm going to add a little more, about a 1/4 cup. Note, if your jaggery is dark, your puran will be darker than mine. That's fine. We have to dissolve the jaggery in the dal. My dal is still hot and the crumbled jaggery is dissolving just like that. I'm going to microwave this mixture to melt the remaining jaggery. I could almost do away with this step. But if your dal is cold, for instance, you must put it in the microwave and let the jaggery dissolve. I'm not using a stove for this at all. In fact, next I'm going to use my stove only for roasting the poli. Traditionally, the rest of the process for making the puran will be done on the stove. I have rearranged the order of steps for my method. After 2 minutes on high power, the jaggery has melted. You can add some cardamom powder if you like at this point. As you can see, the dal mixture has become watery after adding the jaggery. We have to wait for it to cool down a little bit before proceeding. In the meanwhile, let's check out the traditional equipment that is used. This is a rotary food mill. We call it a Puran yantra or Puran making machine, also known as a soup strainer. We use this to make a smooth filling. First, the water is reduced from the dal and jaggery mixture on the stove, and then we put the filling through the food mill. The mixture goes in here, it gets milled, and comes out smooth from the bottom. Any uncooked bits of dal are left as residue on the top. I have simplified this whole process by using a microwave and hand blender or a mixie. With this method, there is no way to filter out any hard bits of dal. That's the reason it must be cooked really well, even if you have to add a little extra water. That took all of 27 seconds. We have saved ourselves a lot of labor. These are the small things that add to the humongous effort required to make Puran Poli. And so, very often, we don't make it at home. The next step is to reduce this batter to a dough-like consistency. I'm using a microwave to do this. It does not necessarily save time, but it is effortless in comparison. As long as there's enough liquid in the mixture, you can use a higher power and a longer cooking interval. Although, I suggest you use smaller intervals of about 5 minutes until you do this a couple of times. The timing is just a guideline. It may take more or less in your microwave. My microwave is 900 watts. The main thing is to keep an eye on the texture. Don't forget to stir it if you keep it in the microwave for a long time. This is the hardest step of making Puran Polis in the traditional way. You have to stand by the stove and reduce the mixture on a low flame. Because of the jaggery, it tends to caramelize and burn. So it needs to be stirred constantly, which is a pain in the arm, literally. You can see it's getting thicker now. Scrape off everything from the sides now while it's still soft. The puran is done now. It's quite thick and it will thicken when it cools. Stirring helps to dissipate some of the heat from the puran. The puran must cool completely before making the polis. Since I'm making everything this morning, I'm going to put it under the fan. You can easily make the puran the day before and refrigerate it.
The hardest part of this recipe is over. The puran is cooling and I've given myself a little tea break. Because I'm making everything in one morning, that's all the time I have. But the most peaceful way of making Puran Poli, I think, is to make the puran the day before and to do the rest of the process the next day. That's what I do all the time, and it's so much easier. If you're enjoying this video and finding it useful, do hit the like button and share it with your friends. It'll be immensely useful to me and my channel. I'm going to finish my tea and I'll join you in the kitchen shortly.
I'm back in the kitchen, refreshed and raring to go. The break was about 35 minutes and the puran is cool enough to handle. It's still warm, but it'll cool down while I make the balls. The ball is forming quite easily. That's good. The puran is not too hard and not too wet. Make balls about 2 inches in diameter. I have 16 of them, but I'm only going to roast 6 polis today. Here is a closer look at a puran ball. It should be soft but not wet. It may stick slightly to your hands. That's okay. If you have made puran the previous day and refrigerated it, it must be at room temperature before making the stuffed balls. That's the next step. My dough was resting for a little over 3 hours. It must be loose and smooth, so pull it, squish it and knead it well. Add a little oil if you need it. Note that the stuffed balls must be made not too long before making the polis. And make only as many stuffed balls as the polis you're going to roast today. Refrigerate the rest of the puran balls. That's it, it's ready. Spread maida liberally on a plate. If you do not want the finished balls to stick to the plate, the dough will tear. This is the remaining tablespoon of oil. I'm going to use that while rolling the ball. The dough ball must be about half the size of the puran ball. When you're still new to this process, your puran balls may not all be of the same size. That's fine. Just make sure you take the dough ball accordingly, half the size of the puran ball. Grease your palms and take a ball of dough. Flatten it with your fingers and cup it like so. Place a puran ball in the cavity and then gently coax the dough around it. This is where the texture of the dough and the stuffing comes into play. The dough is loose enough that you can just move it around like this. I'm showing this to you and doing it slowly. But once you get the hang of it, you can do it much faster. The dough must be sufficiently pliable to move around the ball, and the ball must be firm enough to hold shape while you do that. If the puran is too wet, the ball will not hold shape. And if it's too dry and powdery, then too it will be difficult to stuff it evenly into the dough, and the poli will be very dry from the inside. Bring all the ends together and pinch them closed, sealing the puran inside the dough. Take off any excess dough from the top, like so. This is where you're likely to have too much, at this joint. Roll it into a ball. Make sure the dough is evenly spread across the stuffing ball. If it is too thick in one place and thin in the other, the poli might tear while rolling. Flatten the disc and place it on a flour plate. Sometimes a ball becomes unevenly coated with dough, like this one. You can see it is thinner here. And thicker right here. Even it out like this as much as possible. Shift the dough around. It's quite loose, so you can do this quite easily. It will only become thinner afterwards and will expose the puran. Time to roast the polis. There's no need to keep the stuffed balls covered as we do for chapatis. The oil we used keeps them from drying out. In fact, if you cover them, they may get too sticky. I have washed and dried my hands. I need to use dry flour and roll the polis, and oily hands are not going to help that. That is why it is more efficient to make all the stuffed balls and then roast all the polis. I have lightly greased the tawa to prevent the poli from sticking. This needs to be done at the very beginning, and then that's it. Dredge the ball in the maida, flatten it by hand, and then just roll it like a normal roti. You can see the outer covering getting thinner. It should be thin and the puran should show through, but there must still be a thin layer of dough on it. Flip over and do the same on the other side. If your stuffed ball is made evenly, the puran should reach all the way to the edge of the poli. This is how the rolled poli should be. Thin, with an almost transparent layer of dough. Dry, that's it's not sticking to the board. And unbroken. That is, the puran is not coming out and the filling has gone all the way to the edge. Sometimes it may tear like this. That's okay, just patch it up. The polis need to be roasted on a medium flame. Puran poli is properly roasted when it has puffed and has brown patches on the surface, beginning to puff. Now we can flip it over. It's puffing beautifully on this side too. Puran polis are quite delicate, so handle them with care. Since roasting takes a longer time than rolling, you can easily roll the next poli while the previous one is roasting. If you have a large quantity of Puran Poli to make, it helps to have two people, one person to roll and the other to roast. Then you can keep 2 tawas on the stove, because roasting takes a bit longer than rolling. This one is done. Place on a cloth to absorb any moisture. This poli is the one made with the open ball we saw earlier. It has broken slightly because the outer covering was too thin, or maybe the ball was not sealed properly. That's okay. Just apply some dry flour and avoid that part while rolling. See, it's still puffing nicely, although the shape is not quite round because I had to roll around the exposed puran. If you have room, place all the polis singly on a large towel like this. This is how I let all my Puran Polis cool and dry out before I refrigerate them. The best way to eat Puran Poli is hot with a liberal coating of melted ghee. Some people like to have it with milk or yogurt, but ghee is the best. You can make a stack of these and store them in the refrigerator. They also freeze well. They may stick together in the freezer, so you can place a parchment paper between the polis. Warm in the microwave or a tawa before eating. Or you can keep the dough and the balls in the fridge and make fresh polis whenever you want to eat them.
Well, that was a long video. I hope it inspired you to make Puran Poli at home. Check out this gulab jamun video next. Another traditional recipe that I have simplified for you. I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching.